Okay, so another episode of the 2K 10% tutorial. We're gonna go through ledge warping this time. So ledge warping in a nutshell is a glitch which allows you to teleport to some ledge that you hung from. So you'll notice I just hung from that ledge there. And then if I do something like this, I'll teleport to it. And it's really about as simple as that. Essentially, any ledge you hang from gains you ledge storage in that place. So for example, I currently have ledge storage right there because I hung from that ledge there. And then if I walk up to a beam like this one, and then jump to the end of it, right up to the end, and then I press grind so that the prince hangs from it, he's gonna hang on the beam such that half of his body is going to be off the beam, and because of that the game will get confused and teleport me to where I have my ledge storage. So it looks like this, and there you can see I just got teleported. And one thing to note about ledge storage is that a vertical fissure like this will give you ledge storage, so I can demonstrate that here. If I perform a ledge warp now, you'll see that I will teleport to that vertical fissure. And there we go. So I'm here now. I actually clipped into the wall. And that's another thing as well. You can actually use ledge warping to clip into walls sometimes. And also poles like this one will also give you ledge storage, as you're about to see here. So once you've done a ledge warp, you'll notice that you can't just move about freely. If I ledge warp here and I stand up, I can't actually move anywhere. You see, the game thinks I'm on a beam, which means the only thing I can do right now is jump in any of the 4 directions. So I can jump either straight forward, to the right, behind me, or to the left. And that's it. That's all I can do. So another thing to note about ledge warping is that it does not work with every beam. So there are certain beams in the game where you just can't ledge warp for some reason. And similarly, there are beams where you can only ledge warp from one side and not the other. Typically that's the right side, but not always. There are some beams where you can only ledge warp from the left side. So for example here, with this particular beam, I can demonstrate you can only ledge warp from the right side. So from the right side of the beam, it's fine, ledge warp happens as normal. I've already demonstrated this. But if I try to do the same thing from the left side, you'll see it doesn't work. And if that kind of animation happens, that just means you can't ledge warp from that particular beam or from that side of the beam. Now here's where ledge warps get really cool. So I'll get ledge storage here. And then I'm gonna ledge warp there, but not all the way there. Because I'm gonna stand up in the middle of that ledge warp, and you can see that I'm just standing in the air now. The game was teleporting me from that beam to where I had ledge storage, but I was able to stand up in the middle of that. So now I'm just here in the middle of the air. So that's a really cool thing about ledge warps. You can stand up partway through any ledge warp. Now you'll notice that I can actually stand up in many different places throughout the ledge warp. So the first time I stood up right next to the beam. This time I'll stand up a little bit later, and you can see now I'm way further from the beam than I was last time. So you can actually stand up at any point during the ledge warp. So ledge warping is very fast, and it would be completely impractical to attempt to stand up precisely where you wanted to stand up during a ledge warp just by attempting to time it. just wouldn't be particularly viable in runs. So there is a way around that. Now, first of all, if you want to stand up as soon as possible, that's easy. You can just hold W immediately after after you hang down from the beam, and you'll stand up as soon as possible. However, if you wanna stand up at some point later in the ledge warp, it's gonna be much more precise than that. So what we do is this. So we do the ledge warp, but just before the ledge warp happens, we hit pause. And now I'm gonna keep pausing and unpausing until the ledge warp begins. Okay, the ledge warp has now begun. And from this point on, we can use the number of pauses as a guide for how far we're going to travel in the ledge warp. And once we've traveled the appropriate distance, we can just release pause and mash jump so that he stands up. So for example, I'm going to now stand up on the first pause, and so you can see that I'm here, so roughly lining up with that wall there, somewhere there. Now I'll stand up on the second pause, just to compare. And there you can see I'm now to the left of where I was before. This is on the second pause. So each pause takes you further in the ledge warp. Just a quick note, when doing this pausing unpausing thing, also known as pause buffering, once you unpause and start mashing jump, the prince doesn't actually stand up immediately, but he stands up some consistent amount of time after you unpause. However, you can also hold W, but that causes the prince to stand up slightly later than he would if you mashed space. So you'll see in the runs, some setups have you mashing jump, some setups have you holding W in order to stand up from a ledge warp. So I mentioned that there are two ways to stand up from the ledge warp. One is to hold W and another is to mash jump. Now, mashing jump can fail if you're not fast enough, and if you're having a problem with that, there is a way around that, but it's not particularly appealing. Some runners have done it. I personally don't think it's a good idea, but I thought I should put it in this tutorial anyway. So what I've done now is I've rebinded my jump key to right click. So you can see that on my input viewer. I can jump with right click. I rebinded grind to alt. Now grind doesn't have to be alt, but for this thing you need to rebind jump to right click. And once you do that, you can then ledge warp and stand up using right click, but you don't have to mash right click, you can just hold it, and it also stands up one frame earlier than if you mashed space. So yeah, so I'm just in the middle of a ledge warp now. I'm gonna hold right click and exit the pause menu, and as you can see, the prince stands up. So this avoids having to mash space. However, of course, you have to rebind your jump key to right click, and you have to mess with your controls. So if you want to do that, and if that works for you, fine. But I personally prefer just mashing space, and that works most of the time for me. But I just included this as an option of something you could do if you wanted to. Now at this point you might be wondering, What if you just load the game and you don't have any ledge storage anywhere and you attempt to do a ledge warp? So we're gonna show that off here. Uh, when you load the game for the first time, or if you save and quit and then load your save, your ledge storage actually gets set to the coordinates 000, which is somewhere in the desert. So I've just loaded in, and we're gonna do a ledge warp, and I'll show that off. So we've now teleported somewhere to the desert. Obviously it's not loaded right now because I'm all the way in windmills, but so this allows us to teleport to the desert. Now, the teleport to the desert itself is not particularly useful to us in the run. However, what can be useful is the fact that we can stand up in the middle of that teleport. And of course, in that case, we can sometimes teleport somewhere useful. So that's just a quick little thing to note. Just another thing that I've briefly touched on but not explicitly mentioned. There are two types of ledges in the game. One is the one like I'm hanging from now, where the prince kind of has his only his arms on it, and the second is where he has his legs on the wall, and those are the ones you can grind from as well. Most of the ledge warps I've done so far have been from this type of beam, the one he hangs from freely with just his hands. But just to demonstrate that it can be done, you can in fact ledge warp from a beam like this too, as you can see here. And just to show it off as well, the pause buffering works the same way. It's just that the animation for the hanging, it becomes different. There. So you can see that all works the same. Just one final point. One thing I haven't mentioned yet is getting into position to do a ledge warp. Now, for every ledge warp that I did in this video, I actually had the positions memorized. However, in the event that you don't have the position memorized, there's a kind of global setup you can use for long beams such as this one. So it goes as follows. You walk to the end, turn around and jump, turn around again, take 4 steps forward, and now you'll always be in the correct position to do a ledge warp. So you just jump and you can warp. Now, this also works for beams such as this one, where you've got solid ground behind the beam. Again, same thing, walk to the end, turn around and jump, turn around again, take 4 steps forward. If you're on solid ground, 5 works too, up to you. And once again, you're in the correct position to do a ledge warp. So obviously this only works on nice beams such as this one, where the beam is so long that you can jump back and do the setup, or this one where you've just got solid ground behind the beam. However, if you've got a beam like this one, there's no global setup or anything. If you find any beams like that in the run, there will be setups for that in the later episodes of the tutorial. But for those beams, there's nothing kind of global you can do. You either have to find a setup specific to that beam or just attempt to YOLO it. And in this case, I failed. Anyway, that concludes the ledge warping episode. And the next one will be on airwalking, which is linked to this.